Silence is golden. Or how about this one? In sales, whoever speaks last loses. I've heard both of those sayings, as I'm sure you have, and I want to share 3 examples today of how silence can be the best solution as a seller, as a buyer, and also during the sales process. So the first example I have is as a seller. I remember when I was in sales, there were many times where I would get an appointment with someone that was maybe at a very high level. Maybe they had a C-suite title or a vice president title, and I remember meeting with them. I would naturally feel nervous. Guess what we do when we're nervous? I'm not sure about you, but I like to talk. But what I tried to coach myself to do instead was something different. When I would go into those types of meetings, I would ask the question, and then I would wait 7 seconds, sometimes longer. I would fight that temptation to jump in and answer the question for that person. And there's a big takeaway from this that I remember from my sales career that was very uplifting. I found that when I close my mouth and listen and stay in the silence, I would see that the other person would often sell the solution to themselves. Silence can also be a great tool with an upset customer. Now, I remember another instance. I was meeting with a customer, and it was a very large health system. And I remember the person, myself and my sales director were meeting, was pretty upset. They were upset with product performance, had a list of complaints, and they were going on, and they were continuing to be upset. I remember listening and apologizing, but then I remember something else happened. I noticed my director was being very quiet, and the customer threatened to cancel the orders and to not continue the implementation, and she was still quiet. I felt very uncomfortable with the silence in that moment because I wanted to jump in and rescue and give discounts, give something away to try to resolve the problem. But instead, something very amazing happened. After a few seconds of silence, the customer finally said they didn't want to cancel the order. And as a matter of fact, they did want to continue with a future purchase with us in that moment. Now, what I learned from this situation is, number one, when people are angry, sometimes it's better to be quiet and to allow them to vent. And sometimes when that happens, them being heard is their solution to the problem. I noticed it in that moment. The other thing I've noticed is that if we are overly empathetic and overly catering to that upset discussion, we might end up giving unnecessary discounts, giveaways, and even interrupting that upset customer could make them more angry. So I learned that silence is golden in that moment. Now, there's a flip side of this. As a buyer, I have also used silence, and it was very effective. I remember when I got married, it was a package, whereas the photographer took all of these amazing pictures. And when I met with the photographer, they said, okay, here are the pictures included with your package. But by the way, I have 100 more for you to look at. And they offered a package of several $1,000s for the rest of the pictures. I wanted the pictures, but I sat and I looked and I was quiet. And I told the photographer, I really love the work you did. I really love these pictures, but I wasn't planning on spending an extra few $1,000s today. I was quiet. Then the photographer said, let me go talk to my manager and see what I can do. A few minutes later, the photographer came back, and let's just say they generously discounted that package down to a couple $100s, and I walked away with all the pictures, the negatives, so that I could do what I wanted with the photos. Now, last but not least, I want you to remember that during the sales process, being silent can be the best solution. Remember, when you are meeting with someone, think of it as an interview. We should not be talking the entire time unless we're giving a formal sales presentation, but it should be a dialogue. If this is something difficult for you, count to 7 seconds. Remember, silence is golden.